I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's News Update. The headline news of the day, of course, is the Supreme Court ruling today which upholds the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act in a position written by Chief Justice Roberts on grounds that Congress has the right to tax the American people. One piece was deemed unconstitutional, and that was a provision that allowed the federal government to punish states that did not enlarge the number of people covered by Medicaid in that state by withholding all Medicaid payments to them. Several Jewish organizations praised the ruling. In a statement from the National Jewish Democratic Council, Chair Mark Stanley and President and CEO David Harris said they were deeply gratified by the ruling. Rabbi David Saperstein, director of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, said he was elated, and the National Council of Jewish Women called the ruling a huge victory for women and families across the country. The Republican Jewish Coalition, on the other hand, said they were deeply disappointed by the Supreme Court's decision and troubled by the effects it will have on the economy and the quality of health care. RJC Executive Director Matt Brooks said the American people will have the opportunity to express their opinion on the wisdom of Obamacare in this election year. The American Jewish Committee has called on the Israeli government to reform Israel's chief rabbinate. In a resolution adopted by the Global Jewish Advocacy Organization's Board of Governors, the AJC urged prompt action to remove the chief rabbinate's monopoly in Israel over issues including marriage, divorce, burial, and conversion to Judaism. The AJC cited recent actions taken by the chief rabbinate, including delegitimizing the reform and conservative movements, saying in the 21st century, a coercive chief rabbinate has become at best an anachronism and at worst a force dividing the Jewish people. Just this week, Shalom TV reported that Israel's Chief Rabbi Shlomo Amar had used inflammatory language to protest Israel's High Court ruling to pay non-Orthodox rabbis state salaries, and had called for a meeting at the Chief Rabbinate building to fight the ruling. Rabbi Mauricio Balter, president of the Rabbinical Assembly in Israel, the Israeli conservative movement, has filed official complaints against Amar with Israel police for incitement. Balter told police that Amar's language was a call to violence, saying the moment he calls us terrorists and destroyers of Israel, he is inviting people to hurt us. Representatives from the United States and Israel met on Wednesday to discuss security concerns facing Israel. The two-day talks, part of the Joint Defense Policy Advisory Group, were led by U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Policy James Miller and from Israel Director General Udi Shani and head of the Diplomatic Security Bureau in Israel, Amos Gilad. The meeting focused on Iran's nuclear threat to the region, as well as concern over the instability in Syria. It was also expected that the talks would address continued U.S. support for Israel's missile defense systems. The Defense Policy Advisory Group was created in 1999 under then-President Bill Clinton and Prime Minister of Israel Ehud Barak, with the goal of ensuring Israel's military edge in the Middle East. It was recently revamped after President Obama took office in 2009. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton has urged Latvia to return pre-World War II Jewish property quickly and fairly. Clinton said that property restitution was a piece of unfinished historical business. Nearly 80,000 Jews were killed while Latvia was under occupation by Nazi Germany during World War II. The United Nations issued a statement urging Iranian officials to refrain from using anti-Semitic remarks. This came following remarks at a global drug enforcement conference in Tehran by Iranian Vice President Mohammad Reza Rahimi, who stated at the conference that the Zionists were behind the drug trafficking trade. The New York Times quoted Rahimi as also saying that the Zionists were behind the Russian Revolution in 1917. Rahimi's speech drew condemnation from the EU, Great Britain, and of course from Israel. The Anti-Defamation League had immediately called on UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to condemn the speech. ADL National Director Abraham Foxman said, "One would hope that this resurgence of dangerous anti-Semitic themes at a UN conference in Tehran would shake up the moral, political, religious leadership to condemn it with a strong voice." And that's Shalom TV's News Update. I'm Teisha Bader.